Call to the public hearing on the city of Metropolis proposed 2014-2015 annual appropriation ordinance, Monday, September the 22nd, 2014 at 6:30. We're running just a little late, but, we have had a call to order. And Ms. Tricia,
Yes, sir.
if you want to provide the just really, or just take all the time you need.
Oh.
That ain't true.
I'm sorry.
And this is Patricia Suttles, our CFO.
I passed you guys out the sheet that we're gonna go over. All we're doing is just looking at the big picture, because we've talked several times, we've had several meetings, we know where we're at. This year's budget appropriations are 56 million. Last year, our budgeted appropriations were 40 million. There's 16 million more this year, because we refunded the bond debt. So that is money that we're gonna spend this year, so to speak, because we will be, paying those bonds off. So that'll be money that'll be going out the door. The sewer separation with the EPA loan proceeds, that's a project that we'll have this year. We did not have that total amount last year. And also, we have a capital improvements, projects that we hope to be able to do out at the industrial park this year. So basically, our appropriations are the same as they were last year, except for these three projects. At the bottom, we're gonna fund these appropriations. If you'll look over at last year and the last year column, our current available reserves, right now are at 3.8 million. We had previously established a policy where we wanted to keep at least 3 million in reserves. Last year, we used $1,440,000 of those reserves. We were lucky last year because we had several funding sources that we got in, like through the sale of the old Laidlaw building, and there was some payoff on some notes. So that only caused us to actually dip into our reserves $400,000. That brings our reserve balance down now for the beginning of this new year at 3.8. If, based on our budget, we will need $2.4 million of those reserves this coming year. So June 30th, 2015, it looks like our reserve will be down to $1.4 million. Unless we make a change, next year we will not have enough money to operate.
I hope everybody understands that. You know, of course, the newspaper's here, but I hope everybody understands that whatever they get this year, including raises and things, that people understand that, because come next year in budget time, it's gonna be rough.
It's gonna be rough, that's right.
And they have to understand that. So let the balloons come this year and then we'll bust them in next year.
Well, hopefully,
That's the easiest way to say
It
it.
is, that's a good analogy.
we're
It
gonna
is.
start that process, you know, when this audit's over in a couple months, and we'll start looking at numbers and seeing what we need to do.
Hey, Tricia,
Mhm.
just for clarification, just so it's clear, these numbers up at the top, the 9 million, the 4.5, and the 2.5, they all represent new monies
That's
that came
right.
in. So it's money's in, it's money's
That's
out.
right.
It's just a wash. is
That's
all
right,
it
it's a
really
wash,
is.
because we
It's
have to
not-
appropriate the revenue,
Right.
the same numbers we have at the top, the 9.827, the 4.5, and the 2.5. We appropriate that as revenue, but we also appropriate it as an expenditure. So for on the budget, the net effect is zero. But the reason our appropriations are more is because we have to appropriate those additional items in order to make those things happen this year.
Those special
Yeah,
projects.
for budget purposes,
Right.
any monies you would borrow are considered revenue, and then when you turn around and spend them back out there, it's
If it wasn't for that, our budget would be just almost penny for
That's
penny
right.
for what it was
That's
last
right.
year.
And it is because we're bare bones.
Yep.
And that's why, I mean, we're down to what we have to do, and that's why our budget is basically the same
So,
as it was last year.
for instance, the sewer separation, the EPA loan, if that all comes through, okay, the 4.5 million, is that the total for fiscal year 2015?
No.
And it's on here, but,
No, it's really 6 million is what we got. But last year, we budgeted 1.5.
well, how are we going, how much are we gonna have for actually 2015?
It'll be 6 million. We've got,
So, is that the total amount we're gonna actually try
That's
to
the
use
maximum amount you would try to borrow, that's the
Yes.
maximum amount you would try to.
for
borrow.
2015?
For this fiscal year, yes.
right.
Yes.
And the reason I've got 4.5 on there is because I'm trying to show you the difference between this year and last year.
Okay.
And last year I had 1.5 in there already. So I added the 4.5 for this year to make it the 6
Six.
million.
Okay,
So that's why. But we actually have 6 million. It'll be the total EPA.
The other thing is the 2.5 would only occur through grants
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
If we would wind up, if we don't get any grants, then the 2.5 wouldn't be spent, but that would be grant revenue,
That's
the
right.
2.5.
And most of our projects that we have this year, I think we had 11 million in projects. Like 10 million of it is funded by grants and different things like that. So even our projects that we're doing this year, you know, the majority is funded by grants. It's not coming out of our own pocket.
I think I can ask this to Mr. Abel. Since the newspaper's here, Mr. Abel, could you explain to the people as far as our budget and appropriations? In other words, they see 56 billion and then we see a budget,
Right.
because they're misleading.
It is, it's hard to understand. One of the things you see, appropriation, under the law, we follow what's called an appropriation system. And one of the things we have to do is we have to put down anything we might spend this year, okay? As well as anticipate anything that might come in revenue. Whether we get it or not, we have to anticipate. Because if we don't, we can't spend it legally, okay? So if we thought we might get a grant of $2 million, we gotta put it down on the appropriation side as having been spent. Even though, obviously, if we don't get it, we're not gonna spend it, okay? A budget is closer to what you actually put down that you intend to spend, okay? Whereas appropriation is like the maximum that you could possibly do in a year. And, while you can amend your budget for new revenues, you're supposed to include anything that at the time you make that budget that you think you might get. So if you think you might get, if you've already talked about a grant, or you've already talked about a loan, you kinda gotta put it in there, cause you already know about that. So, the biggest difference is, the budget is pretty much what you're really gonna do, appropriation is what, maybe you might say, on the outside you might do, the maximum you might ever do. The other thing about it is, within both of these items, we have what we call inter-fund transfers, gaming transfers, okay? So sometimes those show up as expenditures, whereas they're really just a movement of funds from over here to over here. But for
But you
counting
show-
purposes, you show them like
all
they're an
those
expenditure.
transfers.
You show all those transfers, so that's why it also
That's-
looks bigger than sometimes it actually is.
Yes, and that's why I always give you guys that piece of paper that talks about, you know, our total appropriations are 56 million, but they're really only, you know, 45 or whatever, because we have all those operating transfers in there. So, I had written Tara a note. I wrote her a note to kind of explain, if she wanted to explain to everybody how we got from where we were, you know, back in 2006, 2007, to where we are now. And, if you don't care, I'm gonna read it to you. I hate to read you something, but I need to read it so I don't lose my place and leave something out, because if I do, it kinda loses its meaning. But what I've written her is, think of the city's finances as you would think of your own. You've got a great job, your wife works, you live in a nice house, you drive a nice car, you vacation where you want, you have a boat, you have jet skis, and pretty much do and go everywhere you wish. That's where the city was when gaming revenue was at its all-time high, 2006, 2007. That's where we were. We were living the dream, sorta. Then your wife loses her job. So now you sell the boat, the jet skis, and don't take any more vacations. That was the city's position when gaming revenue started its downward decline. And just as you would do, the city then stopped doing things that was near and dear to its heart. The funding to the county stopped, the scholarship program was eliminated, overtime was brought to a halt, and through attrition, employees were not replaced. Your husband then takes a second job to make ends meet as you continue to try to find ways to save money. And just like this example, the city found other revenue sources and continued to cut costs. The city made major changes to its health insurance and saved a substantial amount of money, as well as found efficiencies in its workman's comp insurance. It eliminated capital purchases and infrastructure improvements as much as possible. Then, your husband loses that second job, and you're down to one income. Being down to one income, you pull out all stops, no more frills. You make sure the mortgage, the utilities, and the insurance are all paid and groceries are bought. And that's where the city has been for the past 2 years. No frills, only a bare bone budget that covers the absolute necessary cost of employees and daily operations. Finally, your husband's full-time job is reduced to part-time. You can no longer afford the nice car and don't make the mortgage payments. You can't make the mortgage payments. It's time to sell the house and trade in the car. You have no choice but to downsize so that you can meet your necessary expenses. And that's where the city is today. That's how we got from where we were to where we are today. And that's really the best example if you compare it to your own house, because, I mean, that's how we operate too.
That could be a bestseller, who knows? Is there any questions anybody has on the council for Tricia? That's all you have, Tricia?
That's all I have.
All right, we'll open it up now to the public.
Thank you, Tricia.
You're welcome.
Anyone from the public? Well, hearing none, anybody from the department heads, or I guess just anyone that is present have anything to say? Going once? Going twice? So, going 3 times. We do, well, we don't need the motion now, but I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all. Tricia, thank you very much.
Hammer down.
Need the back row to behave a little bit back there.
Oh, that'll never happen.
I told her to fight down.
Call the Metropolis City Council Monday, September the 22nd, 2014. To order, please. Call the roll.
Barfield.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
McManus.
Here.
Midnight.
Here.
And Mizell.
Here.
Please. Yeah, let's do that first. Just like it's on this agenda. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we come tonight thanking you for the many blessings that you've given each and every one. Be with our community, that for the ones, dear Heavenly Father, that have lost loved ones. Not only be with them, dear Heavenly Father, but be with the sick, dear Heavenly Father, and be with the caregivers. Be with our armed service personnel, not only on foreign grounds, but here in the United States. Guide and direct this meeting, that each decision that we make will be for the betterment of the community. We ask in thy precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Need a motion to approve the minutes of the last regular meeting, which was 9/8/14. Second. Moved by Mr. Carroll. Second by Mr. McManus. Call roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're a little bit light tonight, so. First item on the agenda. Citizens' requests. Hearing none, we'll move right on along. First item, Mayor's report. Motion to adopt resolution for the United Steelworkers Parade on Saturday, October the 11th, 2014, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 3 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You know the route?
The route is actually from Fillmore Street, 5th and Fillmore, to the 8th Street entrance of Fort Mass State Park. They anticipate quite a crowd from what they came to me and talked to me about. There actually will be a stage set up in the area where the Labor Day celebrations and things like that. There will be the stage set up, there will be power there, and they can park in the adjoining field there adjacent to the park. So that will give them ample things, and we will actually set out the cones on Friday. I'll have a guy come in on Saturday and set them out on the intersections, and then we'll take those up. I can't imagine, you know, we played it safe. They actually asked for the originally from 1 to 3. I mean, we're not gonna have enough people, we're gonna walk for 3 hours. So I anticipate at the longest, the streets will probably be closed for
So we're gonna.
half hour.
So you're gonna need me to have people shut down 45? Do they get
You
a
will
statement?
actually need somebody at the Sonic entrance, and I think that's the only one Harry will have to worry about.
So they're not gonna take both lanes, they'll just take the,
They're just going to take the eastbound lane.
well, if they're just taking the eastbound lane, we'll probably have to shut down
Yeah.
Fifth and Fillmore, or Fifth at
Yes, sir.
Fillmore.
In fact, really, you know, just to play it safe, I would close the whole thing. We anticipated, that's the way the permit was written, just like we do for the Labor Day, Christmas parade and everything like
It's
that.
easier for me to shut it off and.
Well,
detour.
that way you don't have to worry about somebody getting out in the street, maybe getting hit by oncoming traffic. I close it both ways and forget it. They can route them down 8th Street.
We could shut it off at Fillmore
Yes.
and
Yes.
Fifth, and then go down Fillmore.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would do, and it's just much safer that way.
If it's better, might save its kids from getting hit.
Or, you know, somebody,
Older person.
yeah, anybody. I mean, if they anticipate a huge crowd, I think it needs to be in the whole street going out. So, we do have a,
Got it.
motion by Mr. Mizell and a second by Mr. McManus, so. And Mr. McManus.
McManus, I like that.
Call the roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Next item, motion to accept providing flu shots for full-time city employees from Southern Seven Health Department on October the 16th, 2014, between the hours of 9 and 11:30 here in the council chambers.
So moved. Second. Mary, does that include council or just?
Yes. It does. And this may be one of those things, you know, that, you know, we was talking about budgets and stuff. This is a luxury that we've been able to provide. They actually came up this year from $25 to $28, but that may be something that, you know, we don't, it's just something that we may not have to do, so, or can't do. but we are this time. We have a motion, we have a second. Call a roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus. Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Tricia, was that number not 26 or something? 26 is what actually took them last year, so it's not a great amount of money, but.
Well worth it.
Next item, motion to accept closing of alley at St. Paul's Lutheran Church on Saturday, October the 25th, 2014, from 5 PM to 9 PM for their annual truck and treat.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Next item, motion to accept the purchase of a 2009 Dodge Ram from Linwood Motors in the amount of $12,000 for animal control, John Roman.
So moved.
Second.
And John has got the truck, everything's been moved over. We are actually, in the process of the next, of getting the light bars and the radios and everything put in, just as quick as we can get it done. So, we do have a motion, we do have a second. Call a roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus. Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Thank you.
As most of you remember from the last council meeting, this is a motion to ratify the annual homicide investigation conference for the 3 detectives at an approximate cost of less than $3,000.
So moved.
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Next item actually came in Friday afternoon late. Of course, if it's over my spending cap, but I didn't call. It wasn't that big of an emergency. I just went ahead and put it on. Motion to accept low quote from Boyd and Sons for pinchers for the Bobcat in the amount of $23.46 plus $31 for a guard for the street department.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
The other quote, we actually got 2 quotes. The other one was,
Put that in the minutes that we had 2 quotes.
yeah,
Yeah.
the other one was like 25,
26.
yeah, okay.
2602.
Frank, yeah, Frank's back here.
And
There's a quote.
Julie
so we actually went with the lowest.
Way to go, Frank.
Call roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Next item. Motion to accept the purchase of the new pickup truck from the low quote from Linwood Motors of $19,800.
So moved.
And we did have 2 quotes, and there was a $2,369 difference. And that will be ordered. It will take approximately 6 to 8 weeks to come in. That will be a truck that will go to the light department for Stoney to drive. Stoney, the big truck, ever what that thing's called, utility truck, is that right, Stoney?
Service truck.
Service truck, will be transferred from the light department to the water department for a service truck for the water department. So,
Mayor, was the other quote in Metropolis?
yes, sir,
Good.
it was. Unless something changes, and we're directed by some other reason, I think every quote on automobiles and stuff like that that we can do, we ought to do as local. Now, we actually had in the budget for 3, we're gonna get this one, get it ordered, get it in, We may put out for one more after, someplace around the first of the year, after the 15s come out. This is a 15 truck, so. We do have a motion, we do have a second, call the roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Mayor, before we get off this page, can we go back to the minutes for just a minute?
We can, sir.
On page 5, we need a correction there.
I don't have them in front of me, just tell me what it is.
It's move Alderman Richard resign, and then the vote, you got him absent.
Well,
Check that
Page 5,
Yeah, but it's, he
last
came,
paragraph.
he came in late.
He came in.
He came in late, I
He
think
came
he
in
was
closed
there,
session.
but he
Yeah.
voted for it.
he actually came in
Oh, I
in
see
closed
what you're
session.
saying.
Yeah, he come in.
Yeah, don't, you can't be absent and make the motion, both.
Yeah, he actually came in, to the closed session meeting, he wasn't in the open meeting.
Yeah, in the open meeting,
She just had the wrong check mark.
Just check it on, that's all. But we need to straighten it.
That could be.
Just write it down, we'll change it. That correction will be made. Huh? All right, the only thing in the mayor's report, other than what we've already gone through, is, September the 20th Boy Scout paper drive. You have a need? I don't think we have a need for a closed session. I will just say in open session that, our project, on our Kentucky firm, I did talk to him, today. Everything's still in process. He's still in the process of closing out his existing facility over there. I have the meeting set up with him Wednesday at 4 o'clock, I believe. This Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
10th Street,
Yes,
so that, is that purchased or?
not yet. But they're still in the communication part of it. And the only other thing that, under my report is, under Mr. Abel's corporate counsel report, on the first reading of an ordinance amending the Title III for the spending cap, we do need to set a meeting sometime. Our next council meeting is the 13th. We certainly need to have a finance meeting to discuss the gist of what we're going to do, the amounts and things like that, where Mr. Abel can actually get the ordinance figures put in before the 13th. Mr. Barfield is actually the chair of the finance. We could have one very easily on is that the 8th? The 8th is on a Wednesday,
Yes.
prior to the 13th.
Yes.
Is that suitable to
Yes,
everyone?
yeah, I think Jerry can make
That will
that.
work better
Yeah.
for me.
Okay. Well, we could have one next week, but it's, as long as we get it before the next
Next
council
meeting,
meeting,
yeah.
that's all that matters.
I came on the 7th on Tuesday.
Okay, we'll have it on the 8th. Can everybody be here by 1?
Yep.
Okay, that would be a finance committee meeting, October the 8th, at 1 o'clock. Now, if the need arises, right now I know of no reason for a water line street, nor do I know a reason of any other committee meetings. I was going to ask Mr. Daughtery about ordinance, but I don't know of anything offhand that's pressing. So, if it changes, we'll put it on.
Tricia.
Yes, ma'am?
On my calendar, I have the Hope Light dedication ceremony on that day at 2. So, I don't know if that matters, I'm just
Is
letting.
that right, Mr. Carroll?
But hopefully that's been changed.
Okay,
Again?
Hopefully that's been changed that day.
Okay,
okay.
well then we'll just proceed. If something comes up that we do need another committee meeting, we'll just tack it on after that one.
Very good.
Okay, so that will be
Mr.
a,
Abel, where we at on our houses? Are we close or?
Yeah, we might be able to have that meeting that day, I'm pretty close. I mean, I need about an hour's worth of time.
Well,
to
I'll need a week
Okay,
ahead of time to.
let me see if I can get you that, but, let's see, maybe next week early, or the end of this week.
And
And if we do, we'll have a
I'll put
condemned
everything
building.
together.
Yeah, cause there's a couple others we probably need to start
Yeah, I
on.
need
So-
There's a big list. We need to
Yeah, I
look
need
at.
that list, I'll get with you,
Okay,
and I'll put that, plus I got some more.
I was gonna say, we probably need to
We
talk
need
about
to
some.
bring some of these other stuff, so.
That's a good idea.
I agree, yeah, I've heard about some more too.
Yeah.
Talk about, yeah.
Mr. Mizell, you wanna tentatively put that in there,
Right, I'll get with him, and, yeah, go ahead and put that down for,
condemned buildings?
condemned buildings on, October 8th,
Yes, sir.
and then if that works
I
out.
think a half hour for the finance
We'll
will
have
be
to adjust those according to.
Will
what
actually
the
be,
road-
yes. ample time. I couldn't see why it'd take any longer than that. And I'm gonna put you down for condemn at 1:30, Mr.
Okay,
Mizell.
all right, that'd be fine.
I'm gonna protest.
One person protest?
Yeah. That's kinda like me sometimes, one person protest.
Nobody
All right.
listens to them.
I think that's all I have, corporate council, the only thing you've got that.
The other thing I had was the first reading, and Mr. Barfield had reminded the mayor that we had talked about this in the spring, and, I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly what circumstance it came up in, we were talking about some other expenditures, and I think we were raising the contract amount for bidding, and that came up at the same time, so, the only thing this would do, the only piece of that, there's three parts, there's two sections of the code, and essentially, there's three parts. What you need to know is there's three parts to the code. The mayor can spend $1,500 for anything and everything, okay? If it's an emergency affecting life or public safety, he can spend $5,000. And if the mayor and 4 aldermen will sign off, they can spend $10,000, is the way it's worded right now. The only piece I addressed was just the mayor's discretionary. I mean, now that doesn't mean that in that meeting, finance, you can take up the whole thing if you want to. And we can address the whole thing. But at this point, because that's all we had talked about, I just drafted it to affect the mayor's, the individual.
Unless, that would be adequate, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is the issue, is it a need, or why should I ask that at this time?
Well, that's fine. I think what we were talking about is there just more,
I know there's everything's.
it's gone, it's a lot
That's
higher.
kind of
It's,
what we
it's,
wanted to have.
yeah, you kinda need to work out a number.
That's fine, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have a
number,
problem.
it's just-
No,
Well, that's the reason.
It's just gonna come up in committee meetings.
Okay, that's fine, yeah,
And I think,
that's fine.
you know, we'll just, you know, hash it out, and every what y'all decide is perfectly all right with me. You know, it's not an issue.
It's just whatever you need, that's the thing.
Yeah,
Well,
this is
just
not
like-
pursued by the mayor, I mean, he
Yeah,
got
we'll,
requesting this.
we'll talk about it and we're gonna
Right.
discuss it, you
We'll
know,
do.
and go from
That's
there.
fine, okay.
Committee reports,
Uh-oh.
any other committee have a report of any kind? Coming after Harry or something. Mr. Barfield,
Yes, sir.
Finance Committee.
All right. Motion to pass ordinance 2014, I'm sorry, Jan, what's it?
34.
34. Motion to pass ordinance 2014-34. Annual appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year 2014 to 2015.
Motion made by Mr. Barfield, second by Mr. McManus. Further discussion? Call a roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes?
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes,
Job well done, crew. Job well done.
okay, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I tell you
Hold on
what,
to them balloons.
it's,
Amen.
it's, a lot of credit goes around, but, between, all the department heads, Jan's office, Christie has worked a lot on it, with Tricia. Tricia has spent a tremendous amount of, time on it. She really kinda made it, easy, especially since we almost went off identical off last year's code, we don't have anything left. You know, so, but it does still take a lot of time
Certainly is.
to put that all together and stuff like that. And so that's behind her. Now then she can start on a new thing, which she's already started, so.
She has.
department heads. Frank?
I have two things. The emergency generator is in place at the plant and it's operational now, so we do have emergency power. And also the permit negotiations with the EPA are going much better than expected.
Amen.
I'll give a task force an email tomorrow explaining what's happened, but they've actually taken and started to use the Ohio River instead of the Cache River.
Smart.
To dictate our.
That's a big step right
Yeah,
there.
that's where we should have been anyway.
Amen. That's right.
So that's a good thing.
They've really been cooperative.
Very good.
Well, and Frank's done a good job. of
Frank, you
working
got
back
two
and forth.
quotes on there?
I got it from state of Missouri and from Oregon. Which one do you want?
That's good.
That's a side
I'll
job.
put that in the notes.
I know.
Mr. Massey,
Nothing at this time, sir.
Mr. Morris,
Nothing here.
Ms. Christie, Ms. Tricia,
Stoney
What about
wants
you,
to
Stoney?
explain.
Dollar General is up and under full city power.
I'm gonna tell you what, those folks out there know how to put a building together. I can tell you that real fast.
The claim
One
will
thing
open in
you're right.
October.
Yeah, they've moved right on along, and, is all the poles gone out at Crestview and Carter?
All but two.
When do you think there'll be landscaping?
Supposed to be next week.
Yeah.
Next week,
Unless something happens, they're on schedule, and it's supposed to be dry.
Are they gonna contact you? Or-
We'll know when they're
I
in
need to
town.
be out there when they do it.
We'll know when they're in town.
You wanna help us?
No, but I need to be there. I've got several that,
Remember, you won't be able to direct them now. You're
No,
going to
no.
go-
holding him hostage.
I've got several that wants to.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I'm gonna take the mayor with me.
No, you're not gonna take me. No. No, we need to be out there, and they need to, I think they'll do fine.
I do too.
I think they'll address every issue.
they've done well so far, that's good.
I did talk to Chad, and I told Chad that they need to address every issue that is addressable for the existing project. And I can tell you this, even if they don't do one other thing, and if we had grass out there, the water situation out there right now is 10 times better
Oh, yeah.
than it was
Oh,
before.
no
It's
doubt.
actually getting out of
No
there. I was out there the week that we got the 2-inch rain that day. I went out there and there wasn't any water pooling except right down at the end, and there's a hole there, it's not been fixed yet. So they, they've got it graded pretty dang
And they haven't
good.
had one call on bathrooms.
No,
That's good.
no.
That's good.
And the two houses down at the end
I have not,
that
no.
were
Yeah.
such a problem with that water,
Take care of that.
they had no water in their backyard. Wow. So, that was a good
Oh,
thing,
that's a biggie.
so, but anyway, I'll look for them the latter part of next week.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
check on it out there and see.
And Chad should let us know, in 2 or 3
You can
days.
get
ahead.
something just
I will call you and
email.
let you know. Old business. New business.
I've got one for Rick.
Yes, sir.
If he's got anything good, trial and tribulations of Prairie State,
Oh, boy.
Well,
I mean, you don't have to, we won't quote you or anything, you know.
oh, that's okay.
Not with the newspaper.
As far as their operational capability, it's been much improved this summer, okay? They've been running, they've had some planned outages year to date, okay? They had some in the spring, which to repair stuff and all. But as far as unexpected things, since about, since they had that one pressure valve that caused a problem back in like May or whatever. They got that fixed, got back up in early June. They've not had any significant problems at all since that time. Now, they had I talked to Kevin, I talked to Kevin about it every other day, it seems like, but I talked to him, today, and they are down to their final interviews on a new CEO at Prairie State next week, and hope to be making a decision right away. Over the summer, they were able to put on a new, you might call it plant manager or whatever. They got this guy from Ameren. He was actually at an Ameren plant that was only about 20 miles away or so. And he has a lot of experience with running power plants. And he brought something they didn't have before, which, build a power plant's not just like anything else. You get one up, yeah, it's built according to certain specs, but you gotta find guys that know how to run these things and know what it is and what might cause something to trip off. And finding guys, and that's finding some guys typically with some gray hair that've been around the block, and they didn't have that. And that's been part of the problem. It's been a real learning experience for the first couple of years of a shakedown, if you will. And now they've got a guy with some gray hair that understands these things. And he's doing a good job not only helping work the bugs out, but training these guys that are in those positions. The guy that's over Prairie Power, Jay, I can't think of his name, he used to be the operator at Springfield, he used to be over Springfield Light and Water. Jay runs Prairie Power now, but Jay is on the board of Prairie State, and he's been like their chief operating officer since May. And that's really made a big difference, a huge difference. He's a hands-on guy, and Jay goes out in there and he has spent, he hadn't really taken a leave from Prairie Power, but he's spent almost every day during the week down at Prairie State, and it's made a big difference. I think it's much better. You're still gonna hear things like, this group that sued up in Batavia, okay? Well, the problem there is, there's a couple of problems. One, Batavia is a part of the Northern Illinois Municipal Power Agency, okay? There's only 3 communities in it. It was Batavia, Rochelle, and I think Geneva, okay? So they're not very big. So they had to rely, this northern agency had to rely strictly on, they had to contract all their back office stuff, you know, the bookkeeping and selling power and buying power and all that. Well, they went to the Indiana Municipal Power. Now, they claim that Indiana's the one that told them they ought to buy into Prairie State. You know, that NIP ought to do this. Whether that's true or not. And they had they hired consultants who told them they ought to do it. So now, these local residents are suing all the consultants. Now, which is really weird because Batavia didn't have contracts with them. NIPA had contracts. They didn't sue Batavia, they just sued these other consultants, okay? And they sued Indiana Municipal and all this stuff, saying that this was not a good deal. Well, you know, if you look back at 2006 when they were going through this, well, the world looked different in 2006 than it does even in 2011 when this came online, okay? It doesn't look the same. And, you know, there's been a significant change in administration, significant change in EPA, significant change in attitude towards coal, just a whole host of things happen. Not to mention that you always have some cost overruns and other things that take place. So, that's a bizarre lawsuit. It won't affect Prairie State. It won't affect IMEA. All they can do is sue the people that they said this relationship. And we're not even sure they can sue them because they didn't have these individual, you know, the Joe Blow's business downtown Batavia didn't have any contract with anybody, other than if he had a contract with Batavia itself. And so I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. It's gonna make the news. It's gonna be around a little bit.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna ask you, are we getting any power from them? That's
From
what I've been
Prairie
asking.
State?
Yeah.
Absolutely get power
Right.
from Prairie State.
But they're worried about the big increase that Paducah's getting.
Well, here's the difference. Paducah's eggs are all in one basket, folks.
Exclusive.
If I bought power only from EEI, well, then I'd be subject to whatever happened at EEI,
Exactly.
whether,
Right.
you know, if the power plant went down or whatever. But we buy power from IMEA, which has Trimble County over in Kentucky. It has Prairie State. It has a number of gas generators in line. It has a long-term contract with Dynegy, okay, which has gas generators as well as coal-fired all over the state. And we buy a certain amount on the market too, so that in those times like when the market was low, it's a diversified portfolio.
See,
And,
what he's talking about, they resigned.
over in Paducah,
Well, the
Yeah, CEO.
CEO of Paducah Power.
Yeah.
Oh, Clark.
And they're asking the rest of them.
Really?
He's the only one with.
Well, you know, they were in a rock and a hard place. For one thing, Kentucky Municipal Power, what they call Kentucky Utilities, in reality only operates in about 2 cities, Princeton and Paducah, okay? It's not 33 cities in a co-op like Illinois is, okay? So it didn't have a big base to begin with. Their only choices were pretty much, well, they didn't have a lot of choices. TVA, who they've been with forever.
Yep.
And what people see, short-term memory, and because I went to the meetings when Paducah was getting this information, they actually asked IMEA to come down, and I went with the CEO, COO, the CFO, and our consultant to the meetings with Paducah and Princeton that were, I can't remember where we went, if we went to Bowling Green or where we went. Anyway, we talked about municipal power. Well, they only had 2 towns involved in this whole thing, it's Princeton and Paducah. Those towns only had one other choice, it was TVA. And prior to, in their defense, at that time, 1 year TVA would be up, they sure be down. And they were having these spikes, that we talk about, we wanna avoid spikes. They were having those spikes. And, back in 2006 and 2007, Prairie State looked like a solution to that sort of problem, that you wouldn't have the spikes. Coal was reliable, it was right there. We bought 30 years worth of coal, okay, right there, come right out of the mine and go right in the power plant. And it's had some hiccups, like everything does. And unfortunately, hindsight's always 20/20. So, the Paducah Sun and the Monday morning quarterbacks of Paducah, it's easy for them to
They're on top
criticize
of
those
it,
guys.
they're really ready.
But the good thing from your perspective is, you got a basket that's really big. Your eggs aren't all in one
Absolutely.
basket.
And we're fortunate.
And that's one thing, that makes a
When
difference.
you criticize somebody, get on EPA.
Exactly.
That's who's
That's-
killing it.
It is killing
Well, they
them.
said they was gonna bankrupt them.
Yeah,
It is killing
That's
them.
what they're doing.
And,
they just got caught in the crunch.
Yep,
They
that's
did.
right. On the
They
wrong
did.
side.
And that's, Batavia's the same boat too.
Same way.
It's the same boat.
Yeah.
And Batavia's got one industry that was their biggest customer, and that customer's giving them fits too. They're wanting to buy power basically below cost, if you will,
Right.
is what it's
Yeah.
happening,
Okay.
particularly when gas prices got low.
Gary's
So
next.
they've gone to everybody from state legislators, to everybody else to put the heat on.
Yep.
So,
They wanna shuffle off when it's cheap sometimes.
so,
Thank you, Rick.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good
By
job.
the way, speaking of IMEA, 30th annual, annual meeting, this is the 30th year, is October 17th and 18th. If you wanna go, I gotta know this week. However, I will tell you this, that's encampment weekend here, so most everybody, and I wouldn't be going except I'm the chairman and I've got stuff I gotta do that night and at that meeting that afternoon.
October one.
17th and 18th. But I'm gonna get up and blast back early on the 18th, so I'm gonna make the 17th and then I'm coming right back.
Are you definitely coming back, the 18th?
Yeah,
I might blast with you.
okay, all right.
Mr. Preble, can you explain about the PPA doubling this fund?
Yeah,
I've had a couple of calls that.
yeah, I can. What you have to look at is, and I looked at this too, I thought that looked a little unusual, so I looked at it. Our billing cycle, and we use 3 billing cycles, okay? So, our billing cycle, and Jan can tell you the dates, what is it, 10th, 20th, and 30th? Okay. Ours will not coincide with the IMEA's, which is just a standard 30-day billing cycle. At the end of the month, they send you a bill, like usually sometime in the first 10 days of the next month, you get a bill for the previous month. Well, so our consumption as a city as a whole and the amount we sell, okay, they don't always line up. Now, over a course of a year, they do, okay? Over a course of a year, there's only about a 5% differential, all right, between what we bought and what we sold, okay? But in any given month, we might not sell as much as we bought, or it looks like that. I mean, we sold it, but what it amounts to is the way we build it out and the way they build it out don't stack up, okay? And so some months, you have a 20% variance between what you build out and what you paid for. Well, your PPA is based off of whatever your cost that you paid the IMEA was versus, and it's divided by the number of kilowatts that you build, okay? So if it happens to be one of those months when we didn't bill as many, okay? Because, and the fact is it catches up usually the next month, okay? In some months it flips the other way, where we build more than what we actually bought, okay? When it's like that, what happens is then you take this number that we paid for power and you divide it what you sold, okay? All right, if that's higher, that comes out to how many cents per kilowatt, okay? If that's higher than 7.6, then you add that's your PPA. 7.6 is your base, okay? Anything that comes out higher than 7.6 is what goes on your bill, okay? Well, this last month it was 2 cents. The month before it was like a half a penny or something, okay? in another month, it'll be back down. I tracked it I had Trish do it, cause I come down and looked at it myself, and I wanted to look at it, and I said, I wanna make sure our formula was right. We checked that first, formula was correct. Then I looked 2 years at this. Same thing happened last year, exact same thing. It does that, and it hits about every other month, okay, like that. But over the course of the year, what you have billed to our consumers and what we have paid for in terms of kilowatts only varies by about between 5 and 6%. Well, that 5 and 6% is what we as a city would use, okay? Between our street lights and our pool and our city hall and our public works and our parks and the lights in the parks and all those things add up. So and as long as we stay somewhere less than, let's say, 8%, okay? Give a fudge factor there, about 8%, then we're normal. We're always gonna see that. We're always gonna see that we came up, you'll never have 100% sales equal to consumption. It just won't happen, okay? Because we got stuff that we don't build. But, as long as it's in that 5 to 8% range, that's what you would expect. That's normal. And I looked at, 2013, and it was 5 point something percent. I looked at this year, it was 6 point something percent. I mean, it didn't vary, it varied by about 0.5%, is what it varied by. So that shows that we're running normal, but you gotta look at it for 12 months. And you'll have some months that look crazy on there, but that's why, okay?
Has our paper explained that well?
Well, I don't know, that's a hard one to explain.
Good luck, yeah.
That's a hard one to explain.
I know.
It's that hamburger, and how many ways you gonna divide it up that particular month, okay? What did you cut, how many pieces did you cut it into?
How many of them little burgers did you have?
Sorry about that, I wouldn't bring up food if I know.
Is that adequate, Mr. Carroll?
Yes. That's it. Praise it.
Any other miscellaneous reports or questions or anything that anybody has? If not, payment of salaries, payroll, and contract bills.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mizell, second by Mr. Barfield. Call the roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus. Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Payment of miscellaneous bills.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and second. Call the roll, please.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus. Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have no need for an executive session. We're open for a motion to adjourn. Thank you all very much for your attendance and your participation.
Barfield.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
McManus.
Yes.
Midnight.
Yes.
And Mizell.
See you on the blacklist.